Part 1. The Dragon's Peace. Gathering the World for the Last Battle. At the opening of A Memory of Light, the world stands on the precipice of Tarmangaydan, the last battle that has been prophesied since the breaking of the world. Unlike earlier volumes, where the struggle revolved around preparation, uncertainty, and internal conflict, this final installment begins with a singular focus: alignment. The forces of light must be unified before they can hope to withstand the shadow's full strength. At the center of this effort stands Rand al'Thor, no longer fractured by doubt, but transformed by his revelation atop Dragonmount. Rand's primary objective is to establish what becomes known as the Dragon's Peace, a binding agreement among the rulers of the Westlands that will prevent internal conflict during and after the last battle. The necessity of such a treaty is clear. Without it, long-standing rivalries and territorial disputes could erupt even as the shadow advances, fracturing the resistance from within. However, achieving consensus among proud and distrustful monarchs proves extraordinarily difficult. The summit convened at the Field of Marilor brings together leaders from across the known world, including representatives of Andor, Caerhien, Tear, the Borderlands, and the Xianshan Empire. Each arrives with competing interests and deep suspicions. The Xianshan, in particular, remain an unpredictable force. Their rigid hierarchy and expansionist policies place them at odds with many of the other nations, even as they acknowledge the threat posed by the shadow. Rand approaches these negotiations with a markedly different demeanor than in previous encounters. Where he once relied on force or intimidation, he now emphasizes reason, balance, and shared survival. He does not deny the reality of power, but he no longer wields it as his primary tool. Instead, he appeals to the necessity of unity in the face of annihilation. His arguments are supported by Moiraine Damodred, whose return provides both strategic insight and political legitimacy. Her presence reassures many who had once doubted Rand's judgment. The negotiations are tense and at times verge on collapse. Egwene Alvere, as a Myrlin Siet, opposes certain aspects of Rand's plan, particularly his proposal to break the remaining seals on the Dark One's prison at a time of his choosing. She fears that such an act could unleash chaos prematurely and undermine the already fragile balance of power. Their disagreement highlights one of the central tensions of the novel: the conflict between trust in prophecy and caution born of responsibility. The debate between Rand and Egwene is not merely political, it is philosophical. Rand argues that the seals must be broken to allow for a final confrontation with the Dark One, rather than a temporary patching of the prison. Egwene counters that such a decision carries unacceptable risk without broader consensus. The idle impasse threatens to divide the forces of light at the worst possible moment. Resolution comes through compromise. Rand agrees to delay the breaking of the seals until the appropriate moment during the last battle, allowing Egwene and the assembled leaders to retain a measure of control over the timing. In turn, the Dragon's Peace is accepted, establishing clear boundaries and agreements among the nations. This treaty ensures that even if leaders fall in battle, their successors will be bound to maintain unity. While these political maneuvers unfold, signs of the shadow's advance become increasingly dire. The blight spreads aggressively southward. Weather patterns grow erratic and violent. Entire regions experience sudden darkness or unnatural heat. Reports of Trolloc armies massing in unprecedented numbers reach the summit, underscoring the urgency of final preparations. By the end of this opening movement, the forces of light have achieved a fragile but essential unity. The Dragon's Peace stands as a testament to cooperation in the face of extinction. Rand has demonstrated that his transformation is complete, not only in power, but in leadership. Yet even as the treaty is signed, it becomes clear that time has run out. The last battle is no longer approaching. It has begun. Part 2. The World in Flames. The opening movements of Tarman Gaiden, with the Dragon's Peace established, the fragile unity of the Westlands is immediately tested as Tarman Gaiden erupts across multiple fronts. The shadow does not advance in a single overwhelming wave, but through coordinated assaults designed to fracture the forces of light, isolate key leaders, and exploit weaknesses in communication and terrain. The scale of the conflict dwarfs any previous war, stretching across continents and involving armies of unprecedented size. 4 primary battlefronts emerge, each critical to the survival of the world. At Tarwin's Gap in the borderlands, vast Trolloc armies surge southward, seeking to overwhelm the northern defenses and pour into the heart of the Westlands. At the field of Merilor, where the Dragon's Peace was forged, forces gather to protect the central command structure. In Condor and along the river systems, additional engagements erupt as the Shadow attempts to destabilize supply lines and fragment coordinated resistance. Meanwhile, the city of Caemlyn falls under sudden and devastating attack, becoming a focal point of chaos and loss. Command of these battlefronts falls largely to Mat Cawthon, whose tactical genius becomes indispensable. Drawing upon the memories implanted in his mind, Mat organizes defenses with a level of precision and adaptability that few others can match. He anticipates enemy movements, orchestrates feints and counterattacks, and maintains cohesion among diverse and often conflicting forces. His leadership is not rigid, but dynamic, allowing him to respond to rapidly changing conditions. Despite these efforts, the early stages of the last battle are marked by severe setbacks. The Shadow's forces appear endless, replenished as quickly as they are destroyed. Trollocs and Myrddraal attack with relentless aggression, supported by dreadlords and corrupted channelers who unleash destructive weaves against the armies of the light. Entire units are wiped out in moments, and the strain on morale becomes palpable. Perrin Ibarra plays a crucial role in maintaining stability, both on the battlefield and within Teleran Rayad. The world of dreams becomes a parallel theater of war, where the Shadow attempts to disrupt communication, sow confusion, and assassinate key figures. Perrin's mastery of this realm allows him to counter these efforts, protecting the minds and dreams of allies while hunting down agents of the Shadow who operate beyond the physical world. His dual presence, as both General and Guardian of the Dream, proves essential in preventing total collapse. Egwene Alvera leads the Aes Sedai with determination and clarity. The White Tower, now unified under her command, deploys its channelers strategically across multiple fronts. Egwene emphasizes coordination with the Ashaman, overcoming centuries of mistrust between male and female channelers. This cooperation dramatically increases the effectiveness of the One Power in battle, allowing for complex weaves and combined strategies that neither group could achieve alone. However, the use of the One Power at such scale carries risks. The pattern itself feels strained, and overuse threatens to create unintended consequences. Egwene must balance the need for overwhelming force with the necessity of preserving stability. Her decisions often involve impossible trade-offs, where saving one front may weaken another. Meanwhile, Rand al'Thor withdraws from direct battlefield command to confront the Dark One at Shaiol Ghul. This decision leaves his generals to manage the war in his absence, relying on the structures and alliances he has put in place. His absence is both strategic and symbolic. The dragon must face the shadow at its source, but his departure creates uncertainty among those who depend on his presence. As the battles intensify, the forces of light begin to understand the true nature of the conflict. This is not a war that can be won through strength alone. It is a test of endurance, coordination, and resilience. Every victory is costly. Every loss carries cascading consequences. The shadow does not seek merely to defeat armies, but to exhaust hope itself. By the end of this section, the world is fully engulfed in war. Cities burn, armies clash, and the skies themselves seem to darken under the weight of the struggle. The initial unity forged at the field of Marilor is strained but not broken. Leaders rise to meet the challenge, even as they confront the limits of their strength. Tarmon-Gai'don has begun in earnest, and the outcome remains uncertain. Part 3. Shayol Ghul, the Dragon and the Dark One Beyond Time. While the armies of the world clash across multiple battlefronts, the central and most profound confrontation of a memory of light unfolds far from the chaos of conventional war. Rand al'Thor travels to Shayol Ghul, the volcanic heart of the Blight, where the Dark One's prison has weakened to the point of near collapse. Accompanied by a small circle of allies, including Nynaeve Almayara and Moiraine Damodred, Rand prepares to face not merely a powerful enemy, but a fundamental force of existence. The approach to Shayol Ghul is marked by a sense of escalating unreality. The land itself seems corrupted beyond recognition, shaped by the Dark One's influence into something hostile and alien. Time feels unstable, distances distort, and the boundary between the physical world and something deeper begins to erode. By the time Rand reaches the cavern where the boar exists, it is clear that this confrontation will not follow the rules of ordinary combat. Rand's objective is not simply to defeat the Dark One, but to confront the nature of the prison itself. The seals, long understood as barriers keeping the Dark One contained, have become brittle and insufficient. Rand must break them in order to engage directly with the entity beyond, risking catastrophic release in the process. This decision reflects the philosophical shift that defines his character after Dragonmount. He no longer seeks temporary solutions. He seeks resolution, even at immense risk. Once the seals are broken, Rand enters into a confrontation that transcends physical reality. The Dark One does not manifest as a singular form, but as a pervasive presence, capable of shaping perception and reality itself. The battle becomes one of wills, ideologies, and visions of existence. Rand is shown alternate realities, possible futures in which the Dark One triumphs or is destroyed outright. In one such vision, the Dark One's victory results in a world of despair and domination, where humanity exists only to serve the shadow. In another, Rand imagines a world where the Dark One is completely annihilated. At first, this seems like the ultimate victory. However, the vision reveals a deeper flaw. Without the Dark One's presence, humanity loses the capacity for choice. Without the possibility of evil, good becomes meaningless. People act with hollow perfection, devoid of true moral agency. This realization becomes the turning point of the confrontation. Rand understands that the Dark One is not merely an adversary to be destroyed, but a necessary counterbalance within the pattern. The existence of choice, of the ability to choose between light and shadow, is what gives life meaning. To eliminate the Dark One entirely would be to eliminate that choice. Thus, Rand's goal shifts. He does not seek to destroy the Dark One, but to seal him away properly, restoring the balance that has been disrupted. This requires not only immense power, but precise control and unwavering clarity of purpose. Using the one power and the true power in conjunction, Rand weaves a new prison, guided by his understanding of both light and shadow. Nynaeve and Moiraine play critical roles in stabilizing this process. Their presence anchors Rand to the physical world, allowing him to maintain focus as he navigates the metaphysical dimensions of the confrontation. The strain is immense, threatening to overwhelm even the Dragon Reborn's formidable will. Meanwhile, outside Shaiol Ghul, the battle intensifies. The forces of the light struggle to hold their positions as the outcome of Rand's confrontation hangs in the balance. The pattern itself seems to pause, as if awaiting the result of this singular moment. By the end of this section, Rand has reached a profound understanding of the nature of his enemy and the purpose of his role. The last battle is not simply about victory or defeat, but about preserving the conditions that allow humanity to exist meaningfully. His confrontation with the Dark One becomes not a clash of strength, but a resolution of philosophy. The fate of the world now depends on whether he can complete the act he has begun. Part 4. The Breaking Point. Egwene's Sacrifice and the Collapse of Hope. As Rand al'Thor struggles against the Dark One at Shaiol Ghul, the war in the physical world reaches its most desperate and chaotic phase. The early organization established by the forces of the light begins to fracture under relentless pressure. The Shadow's strategy, guided by cunning intelligence rather than brute force alone, starts to reveal its true effectiveness. The battlefronts, once coordinated under Mat Cauthon's command, become increasingly unstable as communication falters and exhaustion sets in. A critical factor in this unraveling is the influence of Demandred, one of the Forsaken, who emerges as the Shadow's most formidable battlefield commander. Leading vast armies in the region of Shara, a land previously isolated from the conflicts of the Westlands, Demandred introduces fresh forces into the war at a moment when the light is already strained. His arrival shifts the balance dramatically. He not only commands overwhelming numbers, but also challenges the champions of the light directly, seeking to break morale through personal dominance. At the field of Merilor and beyond, the forces of the light begin to suffer devastating losses. Defensive lines collapse, supply chains falter, entire armies are pushed to the brink of annihilation. Mat, despite his brilliance, finds himself increasingly constrained by incomplete information and the sheer scale of the conflict. His strategies delay defeat, but cannot fully counter the Shadow's momentum. Within this growing chaos, Egwene Alvere stands as a pillar of resistance. As a Mirlin Set, she coordinates the Aes Sedai and their allied channelers, directing flows of the One Power with precision and discipline. However, a new and terrifying threat emerges in the form of Balefire, wielded recklessly by the Shadow's forces. Balefire, which erases threads from the pattern itself, threatens not only immediate destruction, but long-term instability. Its overuse could unravel reality. Egwene recognizes the existential danger this presents. The pattern cannot endure sustained balefire without catastrophic consequences. Drawing upon her knowledge and strength, she develops a counterweave, later known as the Flame of Tar Valon. This weave does not merely oppose balefire, it restores what has been destroyed, repairing the pattern itself. The creation of this weave represents one of the most profound acts of channeling in the series. It requires immense power, perfect control, and absolute commitment. Egwene understands the cost even as she begins. To wield the flame of Tar Valon at the necessary scale will consume her. As the battle reaches its most desperate point, Egwene unleashes the weave. Waves of destructive balefire are countered and undone. The pattern stabilizes, preventing collapse at a moment when defeat seemed inevitable. Her actions buy critical time for the forces of the light, allowing them to regroup and continue the fight. However, the cost is fatal. Egwene Alver dies in the act of saving the pattern, her body consumed by the power she wields. Her death is both a personal tragedy and a symbolic culmination of her journey. From a village girl in the Two Rivers to the Amirlan Siet who reunified the White Tower, she has consistently chosen duty over self. In her final moments, she embodies the ideal of the Aes Sedai, to serve the world, regardless of personal cost. Her sacrifice reverberates across the battlefield. Those who witness it are galvanized, finding renewed determination in the face of overwhelming odds. Even as the forces of the light continue to suffer losses, Egwene's actions prevent total collapse. She ensures that the war can continue, that Rand's efforts at Shaiol Ghul are not rendered meaningless by failure elsewhere. Simultaneously, other heroes rise to meet the crisis. Lan Mandragoran confronts Demandred in single combat, fulfilling his own arc of duty and honor. The clash between them is brutal and decisive, representing the personal stakes embedded within the larger conflict. Lan's victory, though costly, removes one of the Shadow's greatest commanders from the battlefield. By the end of this section, the war stands on a knife's edge. The forces of the light have been pushed to their limits, but they have not broken. Egwene's sacrifice has stabilized the pattern and preserved the possibility of victory. Yet the cost has been immense, and the outcome remains uncertain. The last battle has reached its breaking point, where every action carries irreversible consequences, and survival depends on the strength of those who remain. Part 5. The Last Turning: Victory, Sacrifice, and the Reweaving of the Pattern. As the last battle reaches its final phase, the outcomes of both the physical war and Rand al'Thor's confrontation at Shaiol Ghul begin to converge. The forces of the light, battered and diminished, continue to resist the Shadow's relentless assault. Though Egwene Alver's sacrifice has stabilized the pattern and prevented catastrophic unraveling, the cost in lives and resources has been staggering. The battlefield is one of exhaustion, where victory depends not on overwhelming strength, but on endurance and the refusal to yield. At Shaiol Ghul, Rand's struggle with the Dark One approaches its resolution. Having rejected both domination and annihilation as viable outcomes, he commits fully to the path of balance. Drawing upon the One Power and the True Power, he weaves a new prison, one that incorporates his understanding of choice as the defining element of existence. This act requires perfect alignment of intention, memory, and power. Rand is no longer merely channeling. He is shaping reality at its most fundamental level. Nynaeve Almiara and Moiraine Damodred remain vital to this effort, maintaining the connection that allows Rand to operate across the boundaries of reality. Their support ensures that his focus does not fracture under the immense strain. The process is delicate and perilous. A single miscalculation could either free the Dark One completely or destroy the pattern entirely. In the end, Rand succeeds. The Dark One is sealed away once more, not destroyed, but contained in a prison that restores the balance necessary for the wheel of time to continue its turning. The victory is philosophical as much as it is practical. Rand affirms that the struggle between light and shadow is essential, and that the purpose of existence lies in the ability to choose between them. Simultaneously, The forces of the light begin to gain ground on the battlefield. The death of Demandred, combined with Mat Cauthon's relentless strategic adaptations, allows the armies to stabilize and push back against the Shadow's remaining forces. Trollocs and Myrddraal, once overwhelming in number, begin to falter as their leadership collapses and the tide of battle shifts. Yet the cost of this victory is profound. Countless soldiers, channelers, and leaders have fallen. Entire regions lie in ruin. The world that emerges from Tarmangaidon is irrevocably changed, marked by loss as much as by survival. Rand himself pays a final, deeply personal price. In the aftermath of sealing the Dark One, his body is destroyed, but his consciousness survives through a mysterious exchange with Moradin. This transformation allows Rand to live on in a new form, freed from the burden of being the dragon reborn. For the first time since his destiny was revealed, he is able to exist without the weight of prophecy dictating his every action. In the closing moments of the novel, Rand departs quietly, leaving behind the world he has saved. Those who knew him mourn his apparent death, unaware that he still lives. This ending reflects one of the series' central themes, that true heroism often goes unrecognized, and that the greatest victories are those that allow life to continue. The surviving leaders begin the process of rebuilding. The Dragon's Peace provides a framework for cooperation, preventing immediate conflict among the nations. The White Tower, though diminished by Egwene's loss, remains a stabilizing force. The Black Tower, having purged its corruption, stands as a powerful counterpart. Perrin Ibarra, Mat Cauthon, and other heroes step into roles that will shape the future. A Memory of Light concludes not with a sense of finality, but with continuation. The wheel of time turns, as it always has, and the pattern endures. The last battle has been fought and won, but the world remains a place of choice, struggle, and renewal. The story ends where it began, in a sense, with the recognition that there are no true endings, only new beginnings shaped by the decisions of those who live within the pattern.
Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos.